All right, welcome back to Inside the Box podcast. I am here today with an exciting guest from Washington State, college dropout turned Microsoft partner. And not only that, but my older brother here. Tom, thank you for joining me today on my podcast.
Hey, Andrew, thanks for having me at your offices here. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to have you on. One of the main reasons I really did want you to come on is I think you got an interesting story. You definitely took a different direction than the traditional route that a lot of people are used to. And I think that would be an awesome thing to hit on. But before we start, I usually ask a question at the beginning of the, you proud of me for remembering I usually ask a question at the beginning of the podcast, to small business owners, what's the hardest part of being a small business owner? So I think to you, I would ask maybe the hardest part of your job and the hardest part of kind of your journey to where you are, but we'll get back to that. We'll kind of answer that at the end of the podcast. So I would do that there.
Both of them?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So keep them in the back of your head.
Okay.
But why don't you go ahead and maybe just give us like your official title and just a little brief about your job position, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm at Microsoft, been there for quite a while. I'm going on 18 years. I'm a general manager at Microsoft. I work in the pricing division, so the business planning, the group I work in, and we basically set the prices for stuff, how it's licensed and how customers buy it and what they pay.
Yeah. That's awesome. So this is going to be a little bit weird trying to run through this since I kind of know the whole story. But so Tom's from, we're from here in Springfield for the most part. Although, you're older than me, so you got to spend some time in Texas. I don't really remember Texas. And then you weren't born in Texas though, were you?
No, I was born, near Chicago.
Oh, near Chicago. That's
Chicago,
right.
then Ohio, then we moved to Texas, and then that's where you were born.
Yeah.
And then we, the market fell out, the oil market fell out in Texas, and our dad got laid off, along with 20,000 of his closest friends there at where he worked, amongst the other companies as well. And after about a year of looking for a job, we ended up moving up here to Springfield in with family. Shows you how important family is in situations like that.
Yeah. Do you think how old were you think when he got laid off?
I was 11 when we moved. I don't know when he got laid off. It was about a year. I think he was looking for a job, but I was 11 when we moved back to Illinois.
Did that have any, would you think that like seeing that, going through that at that age, do you think that had any kind of impact on like the future? Like, I guess just growing up or now, like in your career, like when you're going through some, kind of everything you've gone through here with school,
Yeah, I mean, definitely seeing the trials and tribulations of our own family and my own father, our father, through his work struggles and family struggles that he went through, definitely has an impact on me. I think that. And then also, as I kind of came of age of making some money in tech and stuff, having to go through the dot-com bust, and then also the 2008 recession, both of them have instilled a bit of financial conservatism in me,
yeah.
Maybe more so than I probably should have,
right?
To be honest.
Well, sometimes better safe than sorry. Well, just a little background, I guess. A lot of people, with me know that I'm into technology a lot and computers and stuff. And honestly, a lot of that came from my brother here, Tom. He's been a huge influence on my life, from teaching me to build my first computer when I was, I don't even know, 9 or 10 or 11 or something. And then you started off like making money as a kid, just like me. But again, that was a lot probably because of you, because you got a paper route.
Yeah.
At what age did you get that?
Well, I actually, when we lived in Texas and Dad had a job and everything, we got good allowance. We got a nice allowance. When we moved up to Illinois, there was no more allowance.
And money wasn't coming.
I wanted some money, and so I, when I was, probably 11, 12, I began looking for odd jobs, mowing lawns, watching pets, things like that. And I applied for paper routes. I sent my information. I never talked to our parents about it. And then when I turned 13, and we were actually visiting family up in Maine. The paper company called our house, got Dad on the line. Is like, hey, you've got a paper out for your son. You had to be 13 to get a paper. And they're like, okay, we got one for him. And it was like, you take it now or we make the next phone call.
It was a hot commodity.
And we were gone. And so Dad, said, okay, we'll take it. And then he did the route.
Wait, did he know at that point, or was he like, what are you talking about?
He didn't know. And then he's like, what? And so, but he then took it for us, and he did the route for the until we got back from Maine, because we spent time with grandparents up there. And then he had it already down to a science by then. Of course, he had the papers with all the addresses.
All right, here's what we're gonna do.
And he developed the rubber band. He's like using the bag with rubber bands and stuff. He had it all down. So then I took it over. and did that for years. And we got more routes because we did a good job. And that was when I brought Jess, my sister, on.
Yeah.
I basically paid her to help out on it. And then when I went to school, she took you on, and you were doing it then. And we kept it in the family for a long time.
Yeah, man. I think I did it till I was 21.
And you started when you were a lot younger.
Yeah, 10 years old till I was 21. So again, you know, that I, you know, 10 years old, I would have never done that. Who would have known? Like, I don't know what path. It could have literally changed the path of my whole life. Just literally having a little job and learning how to manage money and doing stuff. You know what I mean? So it's kind of crazy to think about. I read a book one time called The Turning Point, and it talks about those little like points in life where if it literally just took a left or made one other decision, your whole life would be completely different. It's kind of interesting. So then, obviously, you know, high school, all that stuff. But then you went away to college, to U of I. That wasn't the move for you, though, huh?
Well, you know, I was in computers. I got in computers in high school. Dad went and bought a computer. One of those turning point moments. Dad went and bought a computer out of nowhere. Like,
K's Merchandise.
Yeah, went over to K's Merchandise and bought a terrible computer. We didn't know anything about them. And then I made friends with someone nearby who was probably one of the smartest computer people in our high school, in town probably at that age. We became best friends for multiple years, and he really got me into it and taught me a lot, and I loved getting into it. But you know what they don't do a good job of in high school is teaching you like what kind of jobs are out there and that you can do. It's always very regimented. It's like if you do these things and you get this college degree and you study these things, you can get this exact job.
Yeah, I would agree. It's so weird. I was talking with somebody else about this the other day. It's like, you know, when you go through high school and even in college, if you go to college, but it's like, you don't ever like at that age really like want to learn. It seems like the stuff they're trying to teach you. And then like later in life, you like have the desire to learn and you like want to read and like get better at it. It's kind of weird. It's like kind of backwards.
Well, and it's so regimented. The plan is so regimented. And as in computers, I thought if you like computers, you just had to be a programmer. And that was the only job I thought that existed in technology. And I liked programming a lot, so I went to I got into their engineering college there, which was it's one of the best in the country, right? And the computer science. But you know what I found is I liked programming what I wanted to program,
Not what they told you to.
I didn't like other people tell me what to program, and then I especially didn't like the ancillary classes. I was not huge at advanced math, and I didn't want to take a lot of the other lectures and stuff, electoral items, and so it just wasn't a thing for me. And so the one thing I do regret is I was also in Navy ROTC at college, and I really liked that. I think that shaped me, like built leadership traits in me. The summers I spent with them and the people I met. Yeah, you did some
cool stuff. I remember you being gone doing some stuff, just out on like submarines and different things.
It made me tough, and it made me more disciplined, and it really influenced my personality in ways that I think were life-changing. I really am grateful for the time
you went
there.
From kind of, I mean, I am a computer nerd myself, but you kind of went from computer nerd to like all of a sudden in the Navy and like, I could see that being a good kind of shift. I was pretty much the only one in my family, well, me and Jessica, but that did not partake in like the Navy. It seems like, you know, our grandfather, our dad, our uncle, our grandma, everybody was
long-standing history. So it gave me a strong appreciation for the people that do serve, and I'm very, very grateful to those folks.
Yes, I am very grateful as well, even though I did not do it myself. I guess, you know, I kind of jumped ahead there to college, but even in messing with computers that young, they were really just strongly coming along to where it was like something that a person at home could get and like use. I don't know, like maybe like, is there any like interesting, I don't know. I'm kind of looking for like giving people an idea of what that was like when computers were first coming around, what you were doing on them and what like,
I mean, you do a lot of the same stuff you do today. It was just harder to do, you know. I mean, Windows was just coming of age, like at the time. So most of the time you were using the command line in DOS. You didn't know how to type and how to know commands, and it was harder to kind of find the games. There was no internet, you know. I mean, over time you had more baseline services like America Online or Prodigy, CompuServe, stuff like that. So it was growing. You had local BBSs. There was a big bulletin board scene in town where you could dial up to effectively private little sites that are kind of like the internet, where you could have email and games. But it wasn't easy for someone who didn't have any experience to just jump in and use.
How did you learn from? Mostly your friend, or how did?
Yeah, by getting involved with some friends in the community, you begin to learn from others and learn how to get access to resources and begin doing stuff together and participating. There was a community, just like there's a community now with the internet. It was just a much smaller,
Right,
local community.
A lot harder to find, probably.
Yeah, I mean, you had to get started.
Was there even really books? Like anything?
There were books. There were books. Okay. Yeah, there were definitely lots of books that you could get, but it wasn't as easy as. But you had to go. It was harder to find them. You might look at magazines. The bookstore might have some. But Best Buy might have some. But it was generally you would go to magazines, and magazines were a big deal then.
Yeah. Quickly became not a big deal, but yeah. No, I remember. As a kid, just. It was always interesting because I never really knew what was going on or what you were doing until I was able to get a little older and showed me some of the stuff as far as building computers and stuff like that. And I've probably since then built, 20 computers of my own, and for other people. And that was always, and still even today, people find it hard to believe that I can build a computer. Because everybody just buys them now or buys laptops.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, back then it was to do that that was the best way to get kind of the best computer, I guess you could say, for a decent price.
Yeah, I mean, there were good computers for sale. There was a lot of garbage too. There were some good computers, but it was always fun to build it. And building the computer really wasn't any different then than it is now, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only thing that hasn't changed. It's got more powerful.
Yeah, the concepts are still basically the same.
Cooler lights.
Cheaper.
So yeah, in college doing programming in the NROTC. How long? I remember going up there and taking you to college just barely, and how long did you end up staying in college?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, and I 2 years, yeah.
Even after the first year, were you just man, this just is terrible?
No, I enjoyed my first year. It wasn't until kind of the end of this early in the second half of the second semester of second year. That was when I knew it was over.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not coming back, and then I just started dialing it in for the things I didn't like, and the things I did like, I enjoyed and maximized. I always did really well in all the programming classes. I got mostly A's on everything in my programming classes because I was I enjoyed writing programs, but it was the rest of it just wasn't for me.
It's a very tedious process. I have very little experience in programming.
It's probably
It's probably a lot easier now, but I just remember back in high school, I took one programming class, and I just couldn't do it.
It's problem solving,
Yeah.
It's just like problem solving and solving a puzzle. It's like doing a puzzle.
Yeah.
Whether you use Sudoku or you write a program.
Yeah, I guess if you look at it like that, again, though, me in high school, I just didn't want to take the time.
But I was such a procrastinator. We do in one of my classes that we had, they'd give us an assignment. You had 2 weeks to do each assignment. You had to submit it. It was an automated submission process. You had to have it by Sunday at 10 p.m. And so I'd get the assignment, and I wouldn't even bother starting it until Friday, before the weekend it was due. So
Yeah.
I'd be like, well, I guess I better look at my assignment that's due in 2 days.
Yeah, I was pretty much that same way my whole life too, through school. But yeah, it's so I dropped out of school, and you got a guesstimate on what year that was?
What year? Well, that would have been 97.
97,
I guess. Yeah.
So around then, a lot of stuff was starting to happen with computers, the internet. When would you say the internet was very prominent? Obviously it came around way earlier, but when it was very widely being used.
I don't know about, depends on the definition of widely in terms of it maturing.
AOL, family video. We had family video internet. It was really more regular mainstream. A lot of people were using it.
Yeah, it began really expanding about the time I went to college. So when I went to college, the dorm I was in, it was the first year that they had the Ethernet into all the dorm rooms.
Yeah.
And so I was in kind of one of the older dorm rooms. They had got Ethernet in there, and the internet was there. And it was the first time I was ever on the internet was when I showed up in college in 95, fall of 95. And I had a beta of Windows 95. So it hadn't been released yet. Windows 95 was revolutionary.
Yeah.
It's what made it easier.
Yeah.
To your point of it
People
making it easier.
had it forever.
It was easier to get online with 95. And so I remember some of the people on my floor at the dorm who were the more tech savvy people and knew more about networking than I did. They thought Windows 3.1.1 was way harder to deal with, and Windows 95, it just fired up. It just worked. It was amazing. But that was when it was really happening. The web was there. It was very nascent. It was just lists of things, but like all the stuff that you have today, it was all beginning. It was all just the very beginning. What I saw there when I showed up at college, and then over the next couple of years, you began seeing the all the ISPs popping up around the country. What all started happening at that time.
What an amazing thing to see. Sometimes I argue that, I'm sure there's a lot of things that led to this that you could say this wouldn't happen without this, but the internet in general, seeing that come around and expand is like one of the, probably, greatest, craziest things we'll see in a lifetime type of thing, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember Netscape 2.0 came out while I was in college. I can't remember if I was using 1 something when I showed up, but that's how early it was. The first web browsers had any mainstreaming.
No, Netscape's not even around.
Was right when I showed up at college. It was right around that time was when the web was just the first web. It was the first time I ever used web browsers when I showed up at college. And I was deep in the BBS scenes around here. I ran one and participated in many.
So in college, do you think, I know you had a lot of different friends and stuff that were into some of the same stuff. Do you think you learned more, just playing around with that group of friends and trying your own stuff than maybe even classes?
Oh yeah, definitely. I didn't learn hardly anything in classes.
Isn't that interesting?
I didn't learn anything in classes.
Just sitting there testing, playing around with
the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 programs. I learned a lot, but it was different. It was about leadership and responsibility and that stuff. So that was really cool. I learned a lot there. But in the college programs, I didn't learn that much. That you couldn't learn from a book or, just you want to go write a. They'd assign you. I didn't even go to the classes. They'd assign you a program and you just look up reference material or read the book if you need to. And you could learn that stuff easily.
Interesting. So you left there, dropped out of there in the second year. What was kind of the next step?
Well, I had no idea. I was actually I don't know what I'm going to do now. I guess am I going to go, still be a programmer? But I didn't know what I was going to do. So I rolled back into Springfield and moved it back into the parents' basement.
Had some pissed off parents.
Oh yeah, that was not good. But I went to Lincoln Land Community College. I was I'll enroll in Lincoln Land and kind of reset a little bit and see what's out there. And these community colleges, they adapt more. They can roll programs out and do stuff quicker than anybody else can. And so I rolled into Lincoln Land. I also began working for a small tech company in town called Micro Group, very small little, doing PC work and networking work and some state contract work. And I'd worked for them in one summer in high school, so I went to work for them. And I began being exposed to the concept of networking as a job, to help companies with actual networks and network servers. And I'd never,
because like you said, they just don't show you jobs, opportunities and what you can do and how many different things just one area has. So you started really getting that real world experience then.
Yeah, they teach you to be a programmer at U of I Engineering College. They don't teach you how to set up computer networks and configure security settings and make it so people can log in on large networks and do email and.
Well, at the time anyway, but who knows
at the time. And so, but Lincoln Land had actually started a program for to be a network engineer, and they actually had networking classes, and there were certification tests you could take and stuff. I didn't know about any of that at the time.
Yeah.
And so I enrolled in Lincoln Land. I got exposed to some of this, and I was also then doing a little bit with it at Micro Group. And I was like, this is really cool. I like doing this stuff, and it was really fun, and it was unique, and it was honestly pretty easy.
Yeah.
And I was like, there wasn't a lot of people doing it.
I was gonna say, even if it was a little easy, it's still just
nobody
at the time, nobody.
Yeah, nobody was doing it. It was still a little hard to configure this stuff, and it was hard to know how to make it work.
Yeah.
And so nobody was doing it. It was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you coming home and just starting to I just remember you in my head. What sticks in my head is you coming home with a big ass book, a giant book, and then reading it, and then yeah, man, I'm going down to St. Louis to get certified.
Yeah.
And you did that you were getting certified in like basics. It would seem like basic stuff nowadays, but back then people weren't doing it.
Yeah.
So do you remember some of the certifications that you got?
Yeah, well, the program at program at Lincoln Land was very focused on Novell networks at the time. They were the market leader on network servers, and that companies would have in their offices and stuff, hosting their email and their files and things. They had a certification process on it. So one of the classes I took was meant to take one of the certification tests, and so the course book in that class at Lincoln Land was literally the 1,100-page red Novell CNA book. And the teacher of the class was like, okay, well, we're gonna go through this book during the semester, right? And then at the end of the semester, you can either take the final here, or you can go take the actual certification test. And if you pass the certification test, we'll give you basically an A for the final.
Oh, that's cool.
Right, and so that was what he did. That was his plan. And Novell book, for their credit, their books were actually pretty easy to read. They had little jokes in there. The way it was written, you could just read it.
Yeah.
And so that first weekend after the class started, I was with the in-laws.
Tilt that up just a little bit. There you go.
Sorry.
No, you're right.
I was with the in-laws. I went to the in-laws for the long weekend over probably Labor Day or something, and I just read the entire 1,100-page book over like a 4-day.
That's crazy.
Weekend at the in-laws. Nothing else to do with the in-laws,
Yeah.
So I read the entire 1,100-page book, and so like
what's he doing up there?
Before
it's a good book.
Before class, the next class on like Tuesday, I scheduled. You could schedule this Novell test here in Springfield, and I scheduled the test, and I went and took it that Tuesday morning, passed it. So I showed up to like the second or third class of the entire semester.
You're like, I'm done.
And I was like, I already passed the test.
Were you done? Did he tell you?
And I was like, I said, do I have to keep coming to class? Can I just have like the A or whatever? He was like, no, you still have to come to class.
Oh,
I was like, that's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
And so then I spent the entire semester not participating. I just sit in class and I began studying for my Microsoft certification. So it was like I wanted to go move over to the Microsoft stuff.
What was it, Windows 98 at that point?
No, the server products. So you were studying Windows networking.
Products.
So it was Windows NT.
NT, okay.
Yeah, it was
right,
Windows NT. Time I was studying NT4 .0 at the time. And those are the ones you mentioned, like me going to St. Louis. This keeps falling.
Sorry. There's a thing you can tighten if you want to there.
Those are the ones I had to go down to St. Louis. The Microsoft test you had to go to St. Louis to take. Later, LRS began offering them in Springfield, but for most of mine, except for my very last test, I think I went down to St. Louis for all of them with Microsoft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always thought that was crazy. Those big books were so intimidating to me as a little kid, seeing you with them. But it's funny because schooling you hated, but then you would sit and read like a giant-ass book about what you were interested in, what you wanted to know.
I built some extra computers so I could have servers and I could actually set up networks at home. And I bought the books and I bought practice tests and other materials. So I spent money like you would go into a college. It was not cheap. I put some money on the first time ever I carried a credit card balance. Because I borrowed money to do some of this stuff on the credit card. But I made my own classroom in the basement and studied for this stuff and took the test.
Isn't that interesting? But it's crazy too because you had, a lot of people at that age wouldn't have the discipline even to do that. You know what I mean? I know, I went to college the traditional way, but a lot of the stuff while I was there, I knew. And there were a few classes where I learned some stuff and I had a couple good professors, but mostly I just jacked around, partied, you know what I mean? But I mean, and even now, obviously with where I'm at now, I probably could have got here without a degree. But I would put in the time, not necessarily reading a book and going to get certified or anything, but I would just sit there and play, obviously, as you know, I'm on the more creative side, but I'd just sit there and play with Photoshop and play with these programs and try to just, like you said, do what you want to do, and you learn the whole program from that. And I'm sure you would agree with this, after you learn these things, it's like, all right, how do I apply these to making money?
Yeah, you got to find something you're passionate about and then adapt it to where you could commercialize it in some way.
Exactly.
The biggest problem people have is not thinking about both of those, right? So,
do you think schooling is going to change?
I think I don't know. I mean, I think it is changing to some degree, and it probably will continue to do so. I don't think the current college system is sustainable. With the route it's on, at the prices that it's at for the degrees and programs you get. Don't get me wrong. There are certainly lots of things that need a traditional route of college. There are, if you want to be a doctor,
lawyer,
the amount of studying and things you need to learn to be a lawyer, the things that need structure and consistency for a job function, or a sort of certain certifications that are really required for health and safety and regulatory reasons, those will always be there.
Yeah.
You want to be a real engineer, you're going to have, you don't want people building bridges that have,
I did this on my own, don't worry.
Don't worry, I got this.
I've built one of these out of toothpicks.
I read one. So there's always going to be some of that, but it's better understand these other kinds of jobs exist. I think there needs to be more routes. I think we need more internships.
I've always thought that it'd be cool if there was something set up to even if you had to pay for it, like to go pay for an internship.
I would pay for
an
an internship.
Yeah, at a place where you really are going to get some good experience. Like, I feel like that's almost way more valuable than, going to college. Unless, of course, like you said, something where you actually have to, have that structure.
Like, imagine if you're going to spend $100,000 on college versus taking that money and trying to start a business, even if the business fails.
The experience
the amount you're going to learn, or to your point, pay somebody for an internship or to participate and learn stuff. I've learned so much, even when I joined the workforce, and had to actually get my certifications, and I had to get like a real job and go apply that knowledge. The amount I learned from working with other people from there all the way to today.
Yeah.
Like, we'll talk about maybe what I'm doing now, but I got no formal education. What I'm doing now I was grossly unqualified for, which I told my current boss when he offered me the job.
Yeah. But you figure it out, and you're good at it and make it happen. So you're done. You're working at Microgroup, doing some of that basic stuff. How long were you with Microgroup for, you think?
Not very long. I mean, it was nice. It was the ladies who ran the lady who ran the place and the lady I worked for. They were fantastic, super nice folks. And they tried to take care of me, and we did lots of fun stuff. But I knew I wasn't getting the kind of networking experience I wanted. As I began certifying, I needed to go on something where I could apply it to larger customers. And so that's when I began looking at other things. And so I was probably only there for, I don't know, a year, 18 months at most, before I got my next role.
And then you started just searching for jobs?
I sort of, but I ended up, I got an internship at the state of Illinois at DCFS.
I kind of remember that. I forgot you did that.
Yeah, and they have obviously lots of computers and networks, and they had Novell servers, and they have to support all this stuff. And so that was my first time really entering a larger environment where I had to help, actually work and support computers, and it was an internship. Obviously getting any state job like that, there's like politics and things involved, right, and strings get pulled or whatever. But I got the job and it was great. But I was only there for very little time. So I got the job at LRS here in town, Levi Ray and Shout.
How did you find that? Were you just looking at what jobs were out there?
Everybody. If you're in Springfield in IT, you know about LRS. Like they are like the Microsoft of Springfield.
Right.
Like as far
it's crazy they're in Springfield. Honestly.
As far as IT companies go, they are the amount of employees they have, and for good paying IT jobs, and they are big, and they're nice, and they have great benefits and everything. And so I knew about them. I'd actually done something back, I think it was in high school, where I actually interviewed somebody that worked there for like a class project or something. I don't remember how I got in touch with the guy. But I think I'd put an application in at one point. I just kind of sent it over the wall and never heard back. But while I was at the internship at the state, they called me up and wanted to do an interview. And so I went to do that, and they offered me a job.
Nice.
An entry-level job, and I had to take it, to go to LRS at that age.
It was a dream, probably. You probably couldn't believe it.
But the people that helped pull me strings to get the job at the state
weren't very happy.
No, because I left after 3 months.
But man, you had to. I
didn't have a choice.
Again, that's
it was one of those once in a lifetime.
For sure. Especially, things. How old do you think you were about then?
Well, that was in '98. So I would have been. I think I turned 21 while I was at LRS. I was only 20 then when I started.
How crazy is that?
Yeah, so I think I turned 21 while I was there.
What was your first position there?
I was a network consultant, and it was a very entry-level position. Basically, again, to our conversation earlier, this networking thing was kind of new. The certifications, not a lot of people had them. And so there was a networking group at LRS, and the boss, the guy running the group, through another person, he had figured out he could hire these younger kids who, with that were smart.
Probably for less money.
And he could get them contracted out for, anywhere from $75 to $150 an hour up in Chicago.
Oh yeah.
Right. So he could pay me, $30,000 a year, and then get me on making $100 and $125 plus expenses up in Chicago.
Yeah. On
a full-time gig for long term.
Yeah.
Right. And he did it successfully with one other person.
Yeah, I forgot you were traveling up to Chicago. I never even thought about that. Not for a long time.
Yeah. So he pulled it off with one person successfully. So he was like, I'm just going to rinse and repeat with this other guy, Tom. I was one certification away from having the MCSE, which is the big Microsoft. You had to take lots of tests. It was kind of at the time the big Microsoft certification. I only needed one more test to get it done. And so he hired me. He threw me up to this customer up there on a trial basis for a few weeks.
Yeah.
And then he let him have me for half price for another month. And then he's like, okay, you want to keep him at full price?
Yeah.
And
get them hooked.
And I was living at the Residence Inn up there, basically. He just put us in the Residence Inn up by Chicago, and we just lived there.
I completely forgot about that.
And worked full time up there. It was a great experience. I learned so much working with the people from LRS and getting the hands-on experience in problem solving in real network environments. I was just in constant learning mode.
That's awesome. Again, just the on the job experience. So you worked your way up there, though. How many positions did you go through while you were there, would you say?
Well, the networking group started pretty small, and it grew quite a bit over a period of multiple years that I was there. But it wasn't like there was lots of different jobs. It was just, I was there promotions to like network consultant to network engineer, to senior network engineer. I did become a manager there, and I specialized in security, so I did a lot of security work.
Where was the transfer from like network engineer to security? Like how did that kind of work out?
Well, I just began developing. I've always been passionate about security, and so I'd always done quite a bit with it. And I saw opportunities to do consulting around security. The more interesting transfer that really happened was there was an inflection point to focus more on business than the technology. So I'd say my shift away from hands-on technology happened in that milestone.
And that was when you kind of switched to that manager position?
Yeah, I was actually in '99. I think I was deploying some Microsoft technology it was new, but it had a lot of bugs. So I was on the phone with Microsoft support a lot at customer sites, and they flew me out to North Carolina and interviewed me. And Microsoft actually offered me a job back in '99.
Oh, really?
And it was a really technical job in their support organization, and I would have been working with code and stuff. And it was a crazy interview. It was insane, and I never had anything like it. But at the end of the interview, it was 8 hours. Like it was like 6-7 hours of a panel of 3 people, but like they'd rotate out the people, and I had to sit there the whole day. And it was like,
do I get lunch or
just constantly peppering me with questions and sending me to the whiteboard to solve problems for 6 hours straight.
That's crazy.
And then at the end, they took me back to HR. And you think you're recruiting, and you think you're going to like go home and they'll call you in the next day or days or whatever. So it took me down to recruiting, and they just handed me an offer, like, here's your offer. And I was like, whoa, I don't think I'm ready for this. And they were offended by it. They're like, what? Like when we give an offer, people are usually jumping in joy. They're like all excited that I get to work for Microsoft. And I was like, I got to think about it. I got to go home and think about it. And that was when I went back and talked to my manager at LRS, and I told him, look, this is where I'm at. We had a real discussion about it, and that was when they said, look, if you can take it, and I can go a really technical route and maybe get back into programming and stuff, or they'll give me leadership opportunities to take on more leadership and management responsibilities. And that was when they gave me a small team. Okay, we'll put give you a few consultants and make you responsible for kind of the P&L of your team.
Yeah.
And then if you do well, obviously I grew that team over time, over a few years, grew it to, I think I had 15 people in my org when I left LRS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I remember during that time, a book came out. It was something with security or something. What was that about? Your name got published in a book about what was it again?
Hacking Exposed series. I have a couple copies of the book at home somewhere in a box.
And this was like a national.
Oh yeah, it was a very renowned book.
Yeah,
it's a big book about different vulnerabilities and how to hack into stuff, and it's a really cool series. Another consultant at LRS and I, another person I have tremendous respect for, LRS, and I learned a ton from. He and I exposed a bunch of vulnerabilities in Windows Server 2000, and we. When we found all the vulnerabilities, we emailed Microsoft and we're like, hey, we found this stuff, we'd like you to address it, or, and if not, we'll release the information if you don't care about it or whatever. And Microsoft basically told us to pound sand. So we published the security vulnerabilities. and then they put that, then this Hacking Exposed book published those vulnerabilities. And some of them were around for a long time.
Did they,
Microsoft finally fixed them.
Did they reach out and ask like you if they could include you in the book, or how did that work?
No, they didn't.
Really?
I didn't. Actually, the funny thing is, I was at a customer site, and for the first time, introducing myself to a customer on a sales call, basically, to try to sell them consulting service and security service, and they're like, "Your name sounds really familiar." And I was like, "I don't think we've ever met." And they're like, "No, I know your name." And then wait a minute. And they're I went to a shelf and pulled it off, and they're flipping through, and they're like, "Is this you?"
That's crazy.
And they looked in the book, and I was like, "What?"
That's good.
And of course, I raced to the bookstore and
Grab
bought all of them off the shelf.
That's cool though.
We did say when we released this stuff, we were like, anybody can like publish this, just give us credit. That's what we said.
Yeah.
We said, just give us credit for it if you publish it. So we never said like contact us or anything. So in their defense, so I think we said that was fine.
Nice. How many years did you end up being at LRS about?
I was just having an interesting conversation with a few folks I used to work with LRS earlier this week, and it felt like I was there for so long. We just talked about so much. I was only there for 4.5 years.
That's crazy.
I don't know, like it felt like 15 years.
Yeah.
And there's so many experiences. I guess it's because it's early career. You just grow so fast. It's like memory-wise, it feels like so much.
And the time was probably very exciting. You getting a job at LRS, like you progressing like you did as quickly as you did through different positions, to then being a manager of people. And how did you feel about that transition from the technological side to being the manager side? Because obviously, like, I started this 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏 because I just love like creating and videos and doing all this stuff. But now that I have a business to run, I don't get to do that stuff as much personally. So it's kind of the same thing with me a little bit. I've started making that transition to where there's a lot of business stuff, and sometimes it frankly sucks a little bit that I don't do it as much as I want to. How did you kind of feel about that at the time?
I really like learning new things, and I like the opportunity to begin learning about stuff that I never really worked on, and so I really jumped into that and valued that, and so I thought that was really cool. And I like learning more about how to sell and how to think about calculating profit and those things, and it began an evolution in that space to where I'm at now, where I've moved away from a lot of the hands-on technical work. I do miss it. I've been doing with schools the way they are. I've been doing a programming class with my son, so I've been helping him in one. Yeah, and it's been really fun because I've been coding. I've been coding and problem solving. Look what I made! And I'll be like, we'll have this problem, and I'll stay up late to like work on it because I think it's just fun. Yeah. So that's been kind of fun. But I really have not. I'm not as hands-on with technology anymore as I used to be.
Yeah. Now, did you have any like sales experience? I'm trying to think back on. You worked at Best Buy for a little bit, right?
But yeah, I mean, I sold computers at Best Buy, and I mean that gets you customer interaction, right? Learning to talk to customers.
Newspaper, and you got to sell subscriptions, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't really do much sales with newspaper, but with Best Buy, lots of customer experience with Best Buy, and then lots of customer experience working at Microgroup and with LRS. Lots of just talking to people, out at customer sites. So you learn a lot there. I don't actually consider myself a very good salesman, to be honest. Like if you think about traditional salesmen,
right? Weird little tricks
well, not even that. It's I'm just introverted. Like I'm not good at small talk. I'm not good at initiating the conversation. I don't really follow sports, and like if it's about the topic, like someone was talking about how I can like roll out when I was in consulting, roll out an infrastructure that can help reduce their total cost of ownership through application management deployment or risk assessments around some of the security.
But they're like kind of shooting the shit side of it.
But if they want to just like build a relationship, I'm not good at that.
Yeah. I can understand that. I mean, I don't follow sports very closely either. I appreciate like a good game, but to sit there and chat about like sports that happen, And
it's not that I don't enjoy it. I'm just not good at it. Like some people don't want to talk about it. I've known people who like don't ask me about my personal life. I'll never talk about it. Yeah. If people want to like kick off a conversation with something that is interesting, I'll ask questions, and I love, but I'm just not good at it.
Right.
But probably the most awkward, the worst thing I ever did at LRS is when I had to cold call. That was the most miserable experience of my entire life.
I'm guessing a lot of people would say that is the most miserable thing.
And if you can't figure out a way to make a connection on a proactive call,
it's awkward.
Then you can't do it. And I couldn't. It was terrible. Yeah. Going to Microsoft was fantastic because cold calling for Microsoft was like the easiest thing on earth because anybody will talk to you if you're from Microsoft.
Right. I could see that. Makes it a little easier. So you were there for 4.5 years at LRS, and then. Did you just start researching like jobs that were out there with Microsoft?
No, not directly. We actually we had LRS was the networking group. LRS was going through a transition as to how they serve customers, what kind of projects they worked on. They had significantly expanded the concept of hire junior people and try to get them billable. And unfortunately, that actually doesn't work with most people, with most kids. And it was like the rates were coming way down, and they were doing more kind of contract outsourcing stuff. They set up like a class to try to bring people in fast. And so I didn't agree with some of the frontline middle management folks and the way they were driving things. So I began. That's why, and a handful of folks had jumped out, including to Microsoft, and one of the folks who I have a ton of respect for, he went to Microsoft to a group, and then they had an opening up in Minnesota, and so I applied for that, and I joined the group. This other guy I worked with had joined as one of his peers. I was up in moved to Minneapolis to work selling software to education customers. So like big universities and K-12 schools and stuff. So that was the job I took when I joined Microsoft.
Huh. Selling was it just like any of your software that they might need, or was it
all
specific?
of our commercial stuff, like email and Windows and Exchange and all those things. So like I helped, I think it was University of Iowa, put like 40,000 students on Exchange server for email, which was a huge, like at the time, that was kind of an unprecedented thing.
So would you sell it and help roll it out and everything?
I was in the technology. Well, we didn't roll it out. I was on the sales side, technology specialist. So I'd help with like if they want to do a proof of concepts and if they had technical questions and things like that. I had more of a technology focus on that. But I did not do that job for very long. I was only in that education group for a little over a year. I realized very quickly that I wanted to make money for Microsoft. Like Microsoft's very, very nice and generous in our pricing to educational institutions.
Yeah.
And so there's really not much money in it. And so I did my time. It was great. I mean, I learned a lot. I learned about a new industry that I hadn't spent a lot of time in, but then I wanted something different. So that's when I began a journey of kind of different sales roles at Microsoft, which I did for many years. I sold security software. I became a storage sales manager. So I did that work until between 2003 and 2008, I was in sales at Microsoft.
How long were you in Minnesota for?
Moved at the end of 2008, so it was 03 to 08.
Okay. 03 to 08. So yeah, you've been there long. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but I guess it's been a long time at this point.
Yeah. I've been at Microsoft for almost 18 years.
18 years, yeah.
Almost 18 years.
So now you're out in Seattle. How was the transition from Springfield to Minnesota?
Yeah, that was fine. I mean, it was we didn't have family and stuff there, so that was hard.
Yeah.
But it's like a 6-hour drive.
Yeah, I come up there to visit pretty regularly.
Yeah, so it's not too bad.
All right, then how about from Minnesota to Washington?
That's a long ways.
Yeah.
Family-wise, like it was a little tough. It was a really far move. But, I visited Washington for the first time. Went to a Microsoft conference in, I think, 99 out there. It might have been, I think it was 99. And it was so beautiful. Like the kind of the Seattle area is just one of the most beautiful places in the whole country.
Yeah. I have to say that I have to give a lot of credit to a lot of my experiences. Definitely to my brother and my father for helping pay for some of those when I was in school and my brother. But, we've got the, between snowboarding and trying to get me to go out snowboarding in Colorado and then moving out to Washington and getting to come out there and see you and see all these different places and go to the Microsoft campus and see these just somebody from Springfield coming out to the Microsoft campus, like that's pretty crazy.
It's crazy.
You slowly worked your way up to kind of see it, visit, whatever. But then the first time I came out there, I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. You know what I mean? So you think of Microsoft, it's like, it's almost like an unattainable thing.
Yeah,
like a company that who the hell can go work for Microsoft?
That's what I felt like when I was a kid. Like I'd never seen anything like it. You go to LRS's campus and you think this is like oh my god, look at all the buildings they have over there.
And I remember when you started working there, I thought it was the coolest.
They got
thing
an indoor
ever.
pool and a gym, and you're like, this is like
courts.
amazing. Oh my god, could you imagine working here? I couldn't imagine working at the Microsoft campus. And when I first joined Microsoft and I got to go to Redmond for the first time and walk around the campus. I was walking around with like a camera taking pictures because I was just in awe. And all these security guys came out.
Sir.
They're like, do you have ID, sir? And I was like, I work here, I swear.
Tackle you. That's hilarious. Washington, if you've never been there, it's definitely a beautiful, beautiful state for sure. A
lot of people worry about, it can be rainy and kind of dreary in the winter, but I actually find it beautiful because growing up in the Midwest, all the leaves fall off the trees and it just feels very dead all winter. But there's so many evergreens and rolling hills and stuff. It just is like green and beautiful year round.
Yeah.
Even if it's a little cloudy, I really like it. I think it's very uplifting for me personally. Everybody's different.
Right. So much stuff to do outdoors too. Mm-hmm. Like between the hiking and skiing, snowboarding, there's just a lot of stuff close. We've done some amazing backpacking trips out there. up to the enchantments. That was freaking awesome. Going to the what's it, the peninsula? What's it called?
Olympic Peninsula.
Olympic Peninsula.
Yeah.
We took Tom's daughter, my niece, and a couple of us went there and backpacked that. That was an amazing journey. But yeah, a lot of these things, I don't know if I would have gone and done. You know what I mean? Like if I don't know if I would have done them if you weren't like, hey man, you got to come out and backpack trip with me. But I mean, same with you. Like, who knows if you didn't end up out there? Would you have ever done any of that stuff? Who knows? You know,
I'd never been west of Colorado until I flew out in '99 to that Microsoft conference. I'd never been west of Colorado.
Yeah, yeah. And then getting into snowboarding and all that stuff. So awesome. So you moved out there. Got a house and everything. A lot different real estate market out there, probably.
Oh my God, it's so expensive. Yeah, it's crazy.
When you were buying a house, though, at least it was when stuff was a little bit cheaper, right?
Not cheap enough, but it was like there was a right around the.
Well, you look at like a house here that's $200,000. Out there, it would be like $1 million. I mean, depending back then,
it could be anywhere from $500,000 to over $1 million. If it was in Seattle, it could be even more.
Yeah,
like it could be way more.
So crazy, stuff varies that much.
Yeah. I moved out right as 2008 housing market was hitting, so it was like a third of the way through the crash.
Yeah.
When I bought my house.
So you got a little bit of a discount.
So I got a little bit of a discount, knowing that I was going to live there for probably at least 10 years.
Was it a pretty shocking thing though? Like looking at houses, like, oh my God, how can I?
It was so expensive. I spent
it's probably
so much.
Scary.
It was very scary. It was very, very scary. I actually had
moving to a new place, buying a new house, having your whole family with you,
starting a new job,
in
a new group. Yeah, it was a scary move. I was taking a big risk, big gamble. It's worked out.
So you've been out in Seattle now since 2008. Besides obviously the job and everything, what do you think your favorite part about being out there is?
I think the outdoor stuff is fantastic. I think just the climate in the outdoors is just such a beautiful area. Like there's just
houses. I don't know if people know this, but most houses aren't even built with air conditioners.
Like 70% of the houses and apartments don't have AC.
It's so crazy.
But that's insane because like you have to have. So I bought a new construction house when I moved out there, and I was like, "Does it have AC?" They're like, "No, you don't need it. Like nobody has AC." And I was like, I've only been there in like April, so I was like, okay. And it was and it was early. It was spring when I bought the house. It was probably around April when I bought the house, and I was like, okay, cool. And then that summer there was like a record heat wave. It was like 100 degrees for like a week or two.
Yeah.
And I had like a 1.5-year-old, and it was miserable. I was like, I'm living like a third world country.
That's crazy.
I was like, I don't have to put up with this.
Yeah. Got it.
I had AC installed.
Understandable. So now you're out there, and then you've just worked your way up.
Yeah,
it's been a
just
grind.
Had lots of opportunities. I don't know, but I've done a handful of jobs, did the things I said I would do, and people have offered me new opportunities.
But you always, obviously, like you work. I know that like I said, I've gotten a lot of influence from you as well. But you work hard when there's a challenge in front of you. You want to be the best at it, and exceed expectations.
Yeah, you have to work. You have to work hard. I think success is like half hard work and half luck.
Yeah.
Like you gotta work hard so that when the opportunity happens to open up, you can jump on it successfully. And there are people that work hard and the opportunity doesn't open. There's people that miss opportunities all the time because they didn't work hard to be ready for it or take advantage of it.
Do you feel like going through and getting to this part to where you're at, how did you feel? Did you feel like you would ever be where you are right now?
No, not where I'm at now. No. I moved out to Washington with the remotest hope, that there was even a chance I could get to a place that was maybe a step down from where I am right now. It was like my best possible dream achievement. So I'm glad the way things have worked out have been fantastic. Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the stuff you're doing now, because I think it's pretty crazy. Again, one of the things I thought people would find most exciting is hearing about somebody from Springfield getting to this point and actually understanding what you're doing for Microsoft. because there's some stuff that like with big programs and dealing with these big companies, that's like people will probably just like, man, that is just nuts. So like what kind of responsibilities do you have now at your job?
Yeah, I have a very interesting job jobs I didn't know, nobody ever told me existed. Even until, 10 or 15 years ago, I didn't know they existed.
Mm-hmm.
My boss, so when I moved to Redmond, I joined the SQL Server marketing organization, our database product and how it's marketed to customers. And I had some very specific marketing projects there that I moved out to do. But as I wrapped those up, there was a guy who ran the pricing and the business planning for the SQL Server business. He had a very small team. And he offered me a job running pricing and licensing for this multi-billion-dollar business. To which point I was like, I am not qualified for that. Like you do not. This was almost 10 years ago to the day, almost, that he offered me this job, and I was like, I'm not.
Well, they obviously saw something in you.
Well, my boss is ridiculously smart. Like the guy his background is he's so smart. But one of the challenges that he'd had is it's getting the machine of Microsoft is powerful, but it's complicated and it's hard to get stuff done. Right, and I have a track record of getting stuff done, right? Especially if you're in sales, have done sales, you got to make a plan. You like here's my goal, and then you create a plan on how to get to the goal. And so there's, it's like
which anybody should do.
Anybody should do, but it's hard to do, especially if the plan is daunting and big. If you have this
complicated
grand plan, like I want to, move to Russia or something. It's like, hey, what do I do tomorrow? What do I do the next day? And if you have like a multi-year strategy for something, like a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, but like you don't want to step in the wrong direction. So how do you map that out? I like to people around me get frustrated because I use this analogy so much. I was like, first we got to decide if we're going to go to Hawaii or Washington, D.C., right? And then if we decide on Washington, D.C., yes, we could sit around in meetings all day discussing where we're going to park when we get there and where we're going to get lunch in Pennsylvania. But in the meantime, we're not moving.
Right.
Like at what point do we get in the car and start figuring out how we're going to get out of Washington, and how do we make sure we're headed east when some knucklehead comes along and says, hey, why don't we hop on this plane to Hawaii? Wait a minute, didn't we agree we were going to D.C.? And so my boss recognized my ability to get stuff done. He thought we'd be good partners. He's like, I can teach you the other stuff. And I began almost like an MBA boot camp under my boss who taught me a ton, and we've done some really big, exciting things together. And in that partnership over a decade, the machine of Microsoft moved around us, and my boss's responsibilities for pricing and licensing expanded from the SQL business to over a 10-year period. It now includes almost everything. There's a few things it does. We don't have Xbox. We don't have like Bing. There's a couple of things it doesn't have. But otherwise, my boss owns the pricing and licensing at Microsoft for almost Microsoft's full portfolio of products.
Just because a lot of people might not even realize what you mean by that. What are some of those products?
Yeah, so Windows Server, SQL Server, the Windows Desktop, the licenses that goes to an OEM to ship Windows on a Dell PC or Office 365 on the web page, Office 365 to businesses. Like we have, tons of products. So
just to dumb this down, people sitting at their computers right now, if you're at work or whatever, that employer paid for that in one way or another, and in these bigger businesses as well, like they have to figure out pricing.
Yeah, what do you charge? Yeah, what do you charge for stuff?
And how do you structure that?
Yeah. And so there's two pieces. One is what do you charge for the products? And that's a really interesting process to develop the business models to do that. And then how do you think about customers' complete purchasing experience, right? And that's where I probably spend more of my time, but the customers don't buy just one product or service from Microsoft. You think about the complete purchasing experience and where there are business opportunities as well as customer and partner opportunities is where we spend a lot of time.
Can you say some of the large businesses? I mean, it's probably obvious because most large businesses use something from Windows, but Can you say some of the large customers that you have to deal with and negotiate with and stuff like that?
I mean, not necessarily me personally, but all of them. Everybody's a Microsoft customer pretty much one way or another. One of the things I do that's really exciting is I own one of the many things my org owns is deal escalation. So Microsoft, in terms of is where we have to negotiate with customers. We have a large field organization that has some degrees of empowerment to make concessions in certain areas. And then we have a more senior group that can do more advanced things. And when they need help on a deal, they call my team, and so we engage on some of the largest, most complicated deals there are. So for deal structuring and things like that, I get pretty involved in. But I think the pricing is some of the coolest things. One of the things I found in this job is in traveling around, looking at other business models. Like you and I, we were just talking before this podcast about the McDonald's soda model, with like a Coke.
Looking for sponsorship.
How they charge $1 for all their sodas. And so, or Disney World, they go to Disney World, you start seeing where people
you're paying attention to that because you're in the world of it. Just like when I see a design or a graphic or how somebody's presenting some marketing.
Exactly. You see how stuff is priced and you begin to see why they price stuff. Or you ask yourself, I wonder why they made that decision. I wonder what they're trying to manipulate with that decision. It's really interesting.
Or where they're forcing you to spend this, doing this type of thing.
Exactly. So I think that's really interesting how you kind of go out there and see those things. Or same with when I have to negotiate with big customers, I like to look for opportunities to practice my negotiating skills.
Yeah. And it's really something that people should pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, anyway, like why do they want this much more for this? Or
Mm-hmm.
where's the benefit here? Is it worth that much more? Like it's a good thing just for budgeting yourself on, whether it's small things like buying a drink or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it's really something people should pay attention to in general.
Yeah, well, it's like we were discussing the dollar sodas at McDonald's, and it's like, well, why did they charge the same for, like, who would buy a medium? And, like, okay, well, what if you were calorie conscious or, you don't have the self-control to just not drink the whole large?
That would be me.
And but then I would say, well, should McDonald's charge more for a medium? Should they
charge more for the smaller drink?
Yeah, charge more because it's like, well, we're going to monetize your lack of self-control. You should pay us an extra quarter. So, because it's not about what.
Give me a large and separate it into 2 cups.
Because pricing isn't just about what it costs to make the thing; it's about what someone's willing to pay for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big part of how the discussions we have and the research we do and stuff is what is willingness to pay for things, and how does people's willingness to pay change as you change the price of something, or as you change the packaging of something, right?
Which any business owner should definitely think about. Mm-hmm. I think this is catered. I like catering this podcast to really anybody just with interesting conversation, especially like your story, but to business owners too. I try to encourage business owners to check this out because that's a lot of primarily who I talk to, is local business owners and stuff. But that's crazy to think about. If people aren't thinking about that, that's definitely a big thing you got to pay attention to. I'm just trying to think, like, what is there anything else like that would during this journey from Springfield to college, dropping out of college, getting certified in all these things, going to LRS, coming to Microsoft. What are we missing? What did we miss going over? Is there anything interesting in there I'm not thinking about?
I think one of the things that for folks who look at jobs that are out there or companies that they want to get exposed to, figure out how to work with people in those companies. Right? I think the hardest part, and like one of the reasons college existed the way, there's lots of reasons college existed, but one of them, the ways it was used, was to get your foot in the door. You have to stand out amongst all the resumes out there when you're looking at jobs. And so figuring out how you're going to stand out. Mm-hmm. And a degree might be the right way for many jobs. It might be internships, it might be certifications, it might be people if you can, people ask me, how can I get a job with Microsoft? I'm just getting started, I'm going to college, what if I want to work for Microsoft someday? There's lots of routes to get there, but one is go work with Microsoft partners, for example, right? Like, because find companies that work with the companies you want to work for, because then you'll meet people and you can get references and you can learn more about the job.
Or at least Microsoft knows who that business is whenever you go to apply.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely something. Again, we've talked about schooling a little bit, and that is a big reason I also wanted you to come on, because even myself, I don't necessarily believe in the traditional route of schooling. I went through it, but could I have got to where I am? Would I be in the same position? I don't know, maybe, but I think I could have got here if I just was disciplined enough to sit down and learn and make sure I was, moving in that direction. I did learn quite a bit while I was at ACE, just dealing with a lot of big customers and stuff like that, and got a lot of experience there. But again, get into that position, even if you got to work for free and work a side job or something,
Absolutely.
I think people are scared to do that. I think a lot of people are like, why would I work for free? You know what I mean? But it's like, if you just knew the knowledge that you'd get working at a place that's doing what you want to do, it's just amazing.
I joke with some of my employees sometimes when we're talking about, kind of activities are driving or performance or things like that or opportunities, and how do they get a bigger bonus and like that. And it's like there's points where they might need help with something. It's like, look, I want you to ask for help. I want to help you. I want you to be successful, right? But you also have to realize that if there's a point where if I'm doing the work and you're not doing the work, like
right.
I say, your extra pay is the experience.
Yeah, definitely. So you mean like, I think I know what you mean by that, but like put in the thought and see like where you can expand. Is that kind of what you meant by that?
Well, it's again, like you should value like looking for opportunities to learn from others, right?
Right.
Like to your point about people just think they should get paid for being there, and like don't get me wrong, everybody at Microsoft gets paid very well for being there, but in terms of like anybody can always ask for more, right? Or expect more.
And you can't expect to move up if you're not advancing yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, and demonstrating that you can do more, because here's one of the other things I tell people. I say there are so many opportunities to have impact and more impact, and as you learn and grow and you can demonstrate it. I was like, I'm desperate for people to just take on more and more responsibilities
without you telling them to.
What?
Without you like telling them to either.
Absolutely, wherever possible. I mean, obviously, I'll try to point them to opportunities, but you take it on and do a great job, and then either one of two things is going to happen. Like either I'm going to then have to promote you or pay you more or find a new opportunity to expand your responsibilities more formally, or you're going to go to somebody who will. Like one of those two things will happen. Like
either way, they're in your benefit.
Yeah, either way, it helps you, and so
I think that's a big thing too. Like a lot of times, people just think that they should get paid more and then they'll do more. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like the what's the term, like I don't remember the little term there. I'm trying to think of the analogy, but you got to put in the work and then get the reward type of thing,
Yeah. Demonstrate you can do the work, and you're going to get people are going to invest in you, or you'll move to somebody who can.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, even early in my career, I mentioned I started at LRS for like $30,000 a year, billing out at like $125 an hour. They knew they weren't going to keep me on. They knew I knew what I was billing.
Yeah.
They weren't going to keep me on that, so like they had to then properly provide the raises and incentives to keep me on for the time they did, right? And so, but you have to have a passion to want to do it. One of the challenges with that approach is sometimes you often can feel undervalued. Like, and I've been here myself. And I know people in my team and others in other companies. They'll be like, "Oh man, this other person doing the same job made more. They have a higher title or make more money. It's not fair. I should be a higher level or whatever." And in many ways, it's true. Like I feel that way too at times. But one thing I like to say is, success breeds success, right? And so, if you're doing more than expected of your current level and role, you're going to be recognized as doing better. And then and when you apply for a new job, you don't want your review or your past references to be like, oh, they were average, or they did an average job. You want everybody to say you were excelling. Mm-hmm. And so even though you might have thought you were, under-leveled or being underpaid in a role, if you can constantly have your references being like, yeah, but they exceeded expectations every time, is all the references. I think about the rubber band being pulled back so you can snap it forward. Take one step back so you can take 2 or 3 steps forward. And that's how I've managed my career.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I hope anybody listening really takes that in, because you just got to put in the work, man. Got to show more value. In the end, it's like a business, mm-hmm. and they got to make more money off of you. They're going to pay you more money. So they got, so. Well, I mean, I think let's jump back to a couple of those questions.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember exactly what they were. The hardest, I guess, part of your job, would you say?
The hardest part? I think at this point in my current role, I'd say I'm going to cheat and give you 2 answers. One is, Microsoft is really great that it has so many people you can work with and learn from that are specialized. Like I love the potential of it, but also like for a company that large, though, you do sometimes get frustrated at the bureaucracy of it. So many stakeholders to do anything. So I'd say that can be difficult at times.
Understandable.
It hasn't stopped me from doing amazing things. So like in everybody's defense, it's worked out, but it can be challenging. But I would say the thing that probably keeps me up the most at night is, feeling such an accountability for the folks that work for me. Like I want all of them to be successful, mm-hmm. and so every day I want to think about. There's a point where their success. Like if my people aren't successful, I'm not successful.
Right.
I can't work extra hours to heavy lift my organization to success.
Yes.
There's so many folks, if they aren't doing a great job, I'm not doing a great job. And so you have to like repivot as a leader to how do you help your people be successful and get the things they need to get done. And sometimes that means they might eventually move on to other roles through that success, but like it's the only way to do it.
And they have to trust that you're going to be there to go to bat for them when the time comes.
Yep.
That you're going to, this person
You have to
deserves
have
a
trust.
raise.
You have to have trust in that. And it's hard. But that's what I feel. But it's also what I enjoy most about the job. I had Google approached me back in January about working for them, and I told them, and I went and told my boss the same thing. I was like, the most exciting thing for me every day right now is not just Microsoft, which is a fantastic company, but I've worked for the same boss now for 10 years, which is honestly insane almost anywhere. But at Microsoft and in IT, it's crazy. My boss's boss has been there at my skip level for like 9 years.
Wow.
And then amongst all the managers in my own organization, all but one have been in my org for over 5 years. So the amount of like synergies and cohesion and collaboration and understanding each other and trusting each other is just on a level that it was a very long journey to achieve. And it's just, I love it. I love people I work with, and I work for my people as much as they work for me. And I'm not giving that up until it may not last forever. It's probably not going to last forever. They may move in other roles in the future. Who knows how long. My managers will always be there, but that's what I enjoy most every day.
Yeah. How about the toughest part of kind of your journey to where you are now?
There was unknowns was always a big part of it. I took journeys where the path was not known, and that unnknown always,
taking that next step, like moving to Seattle type of thing. You mean stuff like that?
Yeah, not knowing I always had jobs that was, I'm only going to do this job for like 2 years. And I have no idea what I'm going to do after that. That was my job for a long time.
Yeah. And
that unknown. It was always kind of frustrating and hard. And so I think that was difficult. In IT you never know, but this role I'm in now and I've been in for some time is fantastic. But the journey to this was hard because you never saw beyond that. 2 years. And I've told people, I was like, most jobs I had at Microsoft, if you had told me 6 months earlier, that's the job I'd be doing in 6 months.
You wouldn't believe it.
I would have not only not believed it, I would have said no. No one would ever hire me for that. You'd have to be crazy to ever give me that opportunity.
It's cool to know that people saw that in you, your boss saw it in you to give you the opportunities to where you are now, and it's good. I think that's a good thing because now you have that experience to where you can kind of see that in the people you're managing, you know what I mean? And pay attention for that type of thing. Like maybe this person does not know this now, but I could definitely get them to that point. And that's pretty cool too.
That's what I think is one of the greatest strengths of Microsoft is part of their culture is encouraging that growth and learning and taking chances on people. And of course, not every manager is perfect. Big companies, big Microsoft can have problems, but generally speaking, more often than not, and more often than I've seen in most companies, Microsoft really cares about that broadly. All of my managers, I think almost all my managers, not all of them, but almost all of them took on a manager role from an individual contributor role in my organization. So most of them were people that came in, we saw potential in, they were committed, and we spent a lot of time helping them learn, grow, develop, and demonstrate those skill sets, and they moved up. And so that's just something I'm just really proud of, the work they've done there, and it's what I enjoy about what I'm doing.
That's awesome. Well, what a journey there. Do you have anything else you think we should hit on, or points we should make people to any good information for maybe some of the people that haven't been in some of those bigger business situations, or suggestions or tips, or I don't know, just any other food for thought, I guess?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd encourage people to, if they have, especially the folks you work with and stuff, to reach out to you if they ever have any questions. I wish our schools and stuff brought more people in to guest speak and talk to kids about opportunities in these companies and stuff.
I've actually I've had a couple of people ask me to come to schools. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, I think that's
Felt
really
good,
cool.
Kind of trying to explain some of it and answer some kids' questions. That was pretty neat.
Yeah, I think they need to see more of that. And then I think you were right on that. I think the pricing stuff I think is super interesting. I think the companies you work with and how they think about pricing and price elasticity and their kind of who they're selling to. So it's an area that hopefully they spend time on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a big takeaway people need to think about with schooling, what you're spending, going into debt. I have so many friends that are paying $500 to $800 a month in school loans that they've been doing it forever now. I'm 35. We were done with school years ago, over 10 years ago, or 10 years ago, and they're still paying it, man.
There's
and
so
it's
many
just,
ways
it just
to
hinders you so hard. Like you just like I could not imagine trying to live right now just throwing $500 towards some loan that I got when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you got to think about what the return is on those investments. What's the job you're going to get out of that school? What's that career path look like? And what are the other learning opportunities? There's so many learning. That doesn't mean they're free, but they're different. They can be different price and different routes to learn the things you need to learn. What are the tools you need? What are the experience you need? What are the things you need to get your foot in the door?
And there's more tools than ever now. Between YouTube, and they have all these skill shares and these websites where you can get on there and learn from famous directors or people that have experience. Probably people that do stuff that you do are even on there that explaining stuff. I don't know, I haven't got on them personally, but there's just a lot of resources out there to learn more than there's ever been, and I think people should keep that in mind when thinking about what they want to do.
Yeah, think of the skills you need and think about how you get your foot in the door of places. I think is the most important thing. And if you have small businesses, think about if you can offer internships. Because one thing I will tell you, if you're a small business, you want to hiring good people. I've talked about this, Andrew, about how the hiring process is challenging and scary for small business owners. You take on
taking that expense,
you're taking on
risk.
Responsibility for these people invest in you. They want to trust you, and you're taking on a big investment there with folks. And so I found even at Microsoft, when we do internships and stuff at Microsoft, I've found like that's a great way to meet candidates as well. So it works both directions. It helps the younger people get the experience about what it means to work in a commercial environment and learn from people, and it can help you identify people earlier in their career that you might want to invest in and bring on. So we need to. It
gives them a chance to prove themselves. You know what I mean? Show that they could take stuff on that they're willing. Yeah.
Yeah,
internships are definitely a good thing. I mean, at ACE, for example, I had to do an internship to graduate, a semester-long internship, and I was working at ACE doing my internship, and it was unpaid, but halfway through, they saw what I could do, and they offered me a job. Mm-hmm. So it worked out. I got paid for the second half of my internship finishing school.
Yeah, because like interviewing somebody, I hate interviewing because you have to make a decision because you talk to somebody for like an hour. Like
they're like just going off a gut, basically.
That's so hard to do. An internship, it's like you get a multi-month interview.
Yeah. Well,
at the same time, the person doing the internship is learning skills.
And the opportunity to prove, if they really want the job, to prove themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome.
All right. Well, quite a journey.
Yeah.
I think you should, I don't know how much you really think back on that journey that you've taken to this point, but it's pretty amazing. It's a pretty cool thing to think about. And, obviously each decision you've made along the way got you there, and it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, lots of decisions and people giving me chances, and I'm very grateful for that. And I try to do the same for the other folks.
We'll appreciate you as my older brother and influence in a lot of the things that I've done, and always being a resource for me on stuff like this. So I really thank you for coming on.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Andrew.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Remember, you can listen to this on all major streaming platforms, Spotify, videos on YouTube and Facebook. And now you can even just say, Alexa, play Inside the Box radio or podcast. Play Inside the Box podcast. I was just making sure my Alexa's not doing it. All right. Thanks, everybody. Until the next one. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks.